Hebrews 11 started us off by telling us that faith is the reality or the proof of things not seen. We've been introduced to several people through the study: Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, all the way through the prophets. And these individuals, by faith, were able to see what was previously unseen. They saw the Lord. They saw His promises, and what they saw made all the difference in their lives. They faced challenges, they faced difficulties, they faced threat. It didn't matter what they faced. They decided to follow the Lord no matter what because of what they saw by faith. They're able to see beyond this world. And they're able to see the Lord and His promises made all the difference. Now, what they saw, as incredible as it was, the message of the book of Hebrews is that Jesus is better. He's better than the angels. He's the better offering for sin. He's better than the Old Testament high priests. He's a guarantor of a better covenant. Jesus is simply better. And Hebrews communicates to us that faith in Jesus is the reality, the proof of things you cannot see. So that we would walk away from a study in Hebrews and we would say that there is absolutely nothing better than placing our faith in Jesus Christ. So let's look at Hebrews chapter 11 together. And let's start just by reading verse 32. We're just going to walk through this verse by verse. So 32. And what am I to say? For time does not permit me to fully explain Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, and Samuel, and the prophets. So he begins by telling us that there's simply not enough time or paper to give adequate explanation of all the Old Testament people who put their faith in the Lord, and the Lord worked in an amazing way through their faith. There's just not enough time for him to tell us all there is to be told, and so he gives us a couple names to kind of give us the understanding that there's a whole lot more to be said. And so he's just basically summarizing here at the end of the chapter, and he gives us a few names like Gideon and Barak, like Samson and Jephthah. Those four come out of the book of Judges. If you want to read their stories, I encourage you to look in the Old Testament book of Judges. You could summarize all four of those by saying that they were given opportunity to command the people of the Lord and lead the people of the Lord into victory in very difficult circumstances. Gideon, for example, he was in charge of 32,000 men. God said, I want to reduce your men before you go against the Midianites. And God reduced the number of his army to 300. How would you like to be the guy chosen to lead 300 men against a formidable opponent who would wipe you out? Well, Gideon was that guy. He said, I'm going to follow the Lord, and by faith, he got this incredible victory. Well, all four of those guys have experiences like that where God gives them victory by their faith. Then you have David, who is the greatest king in Israel's history, a man after God's own heart. And though he was not perfect, we see him time and time again throughout Scripture trusting in the Lord no matter what. Samuel was a transition figure. He was the last of the judges and the first of the prophets, and a transition between the time of the judges and the time of the kings in Israel's history. Samuel trusted the Lord. He knew the Lord, walked with the Lord, and no matter what happened in Samuel's life, he tried to seek after the Lord. In fact, it's said in Scripture of Samuel that everything that he said, the Lord did. I mean, he knew and trusted the Lord. And then he had this group of people called the prophets. And then the author gives us this description of some of their exploits in faith. So let's read verse 33 and 34. These, through faith, conquered kingdoms. They performed acts of righteousness. They attained promises. They shut the mouths of lions. They quenched the power of fire. They escaped the edge of the sword. From weakness they were made strong. They became mighty in battle. They put to flight foreign armies. Women received their dead back by resurrection. You have this description here of these who by faith experience these amazing, incredible works of God. I mean, how would you like to be given the opportunity to trust in the Lord and be told, if you will trust in the Lord, you are going to conquer kingdoms? There's going to be 1,000 armed warriors trained for battle every day of their lives, and you single-handedly, by faith in the Lord, are going to send that foreign army running. How would you like to be told people are going to come against you with a sword and try to kill you, but you will not be able to be killed by them? By faith, you will escape the edge of the sword every single time someone tries to kill you. How would you like to hear that you, because of your faith in the Lord, would be able to bring somebody back from the dead? Think you'd be popular in that moment? I mean, this is an amazing opportunity. If you put your faith in the Lord, some incredible things are going to happen with you. You're going to be able to shut the mouths of lions. How do you like to go over to the zoo, jump in the lion pit, and just say, hey, no problem. By faith, lions' mouths are shut. How would you like to go jump in some furnace somewhere and say, I've got the power over fire. By faith, fire cannot touch me. I mean, that's the description of these guys' experiences. By faith, they had amazing experiences of great and awesome things. How would you like to know that if you trust in the Lord, that's going to happen in your life? Anybody ready to sign up for that? I mean, that sounds pretty amazing. But that's not the whole story. So let's continue reading in verse 35. But others were tortured by being beaten, not receiving their release so that they might attain a better resurrection. And others experienced mockings and scourgings, yes, even chains and prison. They were stoned. They were sawn in two. They died by the edge of the sword. They went about in sheepskins and in goatskins. It's not sounding too good so far. They were destitute. They were afflicted. They were ill-treated. The world was not worthy of people like this. They wandered around in deserts and on mountains and in caves and in holes in the ground. All right, how would you like to be offered the opportunity to trust in the Lord? And you would be told, trust in the Lord. And you're going to be strapped to this wooden frame and you're going to be beat until you die. Or how would you like to be offered to trust the Lord and know that as a result of you trusting in the Lord, some guys would throw you in a circle of guys and they would all pick up stones about the size of baseballs and begin to pummel you with those stones until you die a slow and painful death? I mean, how do you even fathom the thought that by faith in the Lord, you're going to be laid out, tied out, and then sawn in half? You're not going to escape the sword. You're going to have your head chopped off. You're not going to conquer kings. You're going to be defeated. And you're going to die. I mean, how would you like to know that if you follow the Lord, what you're going to experience is complete destitution, complete poverty, homelessness, and the best you're going to have is a hole in the ground to live in? Anybody signing up for that? I mean, a junior high kid will be able to make this decision. It's the same kind of opportunity that a kid in 6th grade is given. Hey, do you want to be a part of the baseball team that's going to win the championship? Or do you want to be part of the baseball team that's never going to win a game? What's he going to say? He's going to say, I want to be a part of the winning team because we have adopted the perspective that the experience is really defined by how great things go. And if things don't go great, then the experience was not preferable. And there is a biblical message here in Hebrews 11 that will define for us what this life is about. And if we miss it, we are going to miss the joy of living in this world. You know, the truth is that some of us, our lives of faith in the Lord are going to be somewhat like option A, the great things of the Lord. Victory, deliverance, God working in miraculous ways, astounding things happening through our faith. Now, some of us are going to have lives that look a lot more like option B. We're not going to experience victory. We're going to have hardship that will not be resolved. So some of us are going to, by faith, experience missing out on dying because of something in our lives. Through faith, we're going to experience healing or overcoming a controversy or escaping a danger. But some of us, by faith in the Lord, are going to die in our faith. We're going to die because of our faith. Option A and option B are simply not our call. And the message of this passage is that the significance of life is not found in option A. That's what we'd like to believe. We'd like to believe that man's significance of a life in faith is really experienced when I can command armies, when I can conquer kingdoms, when I can say this is what the Lord's going to do and He does it. We think that the significance of a life of faith is only found in option A, but Hebrews 11 is telling us that the significance of a life in faith is found in option A and option B, because the significance is not in the circumstances that God dictates. The significance is found in faith in the Lord no matter what. The significance found in this life is found through simply trusting the Lord no matter what. Whether you have life option A or whether you have option B, the significance is found simply by walking with the Lord. This passage stresses this in multiple ways. The first one is just simply the lists. The lists make it clear that there is an equation here. There's an equality between option A and option B. It's not like option A is better than option B. Option A and option B are equal in significance, which means that the life of faith in the Lord, no matter what, is where you find life. Whether it's option A or option B, simply not your call. The second way that this passage stresses this truth is that there is a little description about option B guys in the text. If you notice in the text, there's this little description of option B guys. If you think about the option A group, these are the guys that walk in and they conquer a kingdom. Guys that walk in and all these people are arrayed against them in battle uniforms, and they say, not today, not on my watch, and single-handedly they take care of the whole situation. These are the guys where someone is weeping because they lost a loved one, and this guy comes in and raises that loved one back to life. These are the guys who are tried to be killed, and they can't be killed because of by faith they are protected from being killed. These are the heroes. Option A people are the ones that everybody wants to hear from. They're the heroes. They're the ones that step on the field and can do what nobody else can do. They're what everybody wants to learn from. They're the guys who are speaking at the big conferences. They're the name. They're the people of the world saying, hey, we want to hear from those guys. They are the heroes. Option B people, they can't land a speaking engagement if they pay their own way. Nobody wants to hear from option B. The world just wants to kill the guys in option B. The best they get is a hole in the ground to live in. But notice what God says. See, the world says about option B, you guys aren't even worthy to live in a hole in the ground. But God says, hey, this entire world is not worthy to have guys like you living in it. It's like God just wants us to know that the natural bent of our hearts to say, option A is where it's really at. He says, option A, option B, equal. Where it's really at is simply trusting me no matter what. The third way that this text really emphasizes the significance of trusting in the Lord is found in verse 39. Look at verse 39. All these, obtaining a witness through faith, did not receive the promises because God prepared something better for us, so that without us, they might not be made perfect. The third way that the author of Hebrews emphasizes that life lived in faith in the Lord, no matter what, is where you find significance, is in the fact that all of these, in Hebrews 11, obtained a witness from the Lord. Now, this takes us all the way back to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 and 2, where we were told at that point that Abel, Enoch, and Noah, those three guys, obtained a witness by faith from the Lord. And the witness from the Lord is that these guys were righteous or pleasing to God. So then here we come at the end of Hebrews. At the end of Hebrews, we are being told here that all of these, from Abel all the way through all the prophets of the Old Testament, this entire group has by faith obtained a witness from God. As if they're in a courtroom and God comes in as the one testifying for them and says, these guys, by faith in me, no matter what, have obtained righteousness from me. Righteousness by faith. And if you remember, when we talked about this back when we started Hebrews 11, we talked about righteousness as this great reward from faith in God. And that it's kind of like a small gift-wrapped box that you get given to you, and you think that that box in and of itself is the gift. So you receive the box, you begin to open the box thinking that what you've been given is the gift from the giver. You open it up the box and you see inside the box is a key. And that key is a key to a brand new car. And all of a sudden you realize that the gift inside the box was not really the gift. The gift inside the box was simply a means to the gift. So you take the key, you get in your car, you start it up, and you enjoy the gift. But the key was the means to the gift. And so righteousness is not the ultimate reward. Righteousness is the key that enables you to get in the car of knowing and understanding the Lord. The real reward is God. And the only way you can get to know God, the only way you can be in God's presence is if you have righteousness that comes from God. And so by faith, these obtained a witness that they were righteous so that they could then receive the promise of God. Now I want you to notice here in Hebrews 11 verse 39, it says of these who obtained the witness that they did not receive the promise. All the way through Hebrews, every time you see the word promise, up until this point in Hebrews, has been used to signify the promises of God in general given and made to these Old Testament believers. And it's always appearing in the plural form until we get to Hebrews 11:39. And in Hebrews 11:39, there's a switch to the singular. The author is making it clear that these who have obtained the witness they are righteous are fully capable of receiving the promise because of being declared righteous. But they have not received the promise, referring to the person of Jesus Christ. that though their faith in the Lord resulted in being righteous, God determined that there was a different place and a different time and a different people that would experience the fulfillment of His promise in the Messiah. We are a part of that people who have received what the author of Hebrews says was something better. So that now we have received the promise of Jesus Christ, something better, so that us, together with the Old Testament believers, now can be made perfect or righteous with the righteousness of Christ through faith. So that now we, along with the Old Testament believers, exemplified here in Hebrews 11, are together waiting for Christ to return and to fulfill everything that He promised. And so here we are, waiting by faith in Jesus. Remember, Jesus is better. And that means that what we have in Jesus is better than what everyone had that we've heard talked about in Hebrews 11. Enoch walked with God. He walked with God. Year after year, century after century, he walked with God. Moses entered into the tent of meeting and was able to talk to God. This is how God described it. Face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. But better means better. I think sometimes we read Hebrews chapter 11 and we think, man, these guys in Hebrews 11, this is the hall of faith. We talk about it like it's the hall of fame. I mean, these are the guys who set the standard. If I can just be like Moses and if I can just be like Noah, and if I can just be like Abraham and his faith, man, these guys set the standard. And I just want to encourage you this morning, that's not why this chapter is written. How many of you recognize names like Joe DiMaggio, Hank Aaron, Babe Ruth? You recognize those names? Those are baseball Hall of Famers. You know how many people make it into the Baseball Hall of Fame that played baseball? 1% of the guys who played baseball actually make it into the Hall of Fame. And when you start talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame, you immediately begin talking about the things that some of those guys did in their careers, some of the records that were set. I mean, Babe Ruth set the home run record in 1927, hitting 60 home runs in one season. And that record was believed to be unbreakable for almost 4 decades. Everybody looked at that record of Babe Ruth and said, that's the standard. If I can just get close to 60, man, I am doing incredible. Except one guy in 1961 who looked at Babe Ruth's record and thought, I think I'm going to go further than that. And he broke his record. Now, we're not going to talk about the steroid era. We're just going to leave that out of this illustration. But anyway, other records have been set in baseball history that thought were unbreakable, like Lou Gehrig's baseball record for consecutive games played. Over 2,000 consecutive games played. Nobody ever thought it'd be broken. And then Cal Ripken Jr. comes along and just shatters it by hundreds of games. Sandy Koufax threw 4 no-hitters in the 60s. Nobody thought that would ever be broken. And then Nolan Ryan comes along and throws 7 no-hitters, shatters it. Somewhere along the way, somebody looked at that record and say, you know, instead of that being something I attain to, I'm going to use that as my springboard. I'm going to go on to something better. See, something better really does mean something better. There's no doubt that Abraham and Noah and Moses set records in their faith journey. But the author of Hebrews wants us to know that significance in life comes through faith in the Lord no matter what. And there's nothing better than placing your faith in Jesus Christ. better really means better. And every single one of you know what that's like in life. I mean, all of you today, when you leave the church, how many of you came today to church in a horse and buggy? Anybody? Covered wagon? Anyone? Anyone? Covered wagon? I didn't think so. You all drove. And today, when you get in your car and you start your car, guess what? You understand what better means. I suspect that already this morning, during this service, that in fact, let's just do a show of hands, okay? True confessions. How many people have texted someone or received a text during this service since it began? Let's see your hands. How many? All right, keep them up, keep them up. I want to see who all the guilty ones are. All right, good, good. I'll be praying for y'all over spring break. Now, here's the deal. Every one of us know what it's like to get text, receive text, or answer the phone on a cell phone. Do you know it wasn't very long ago when if you wanted to contact a loved one that lived 3 states over, that it might take you months to do so and you might never really be able to communicate with them? I mean, we all here know what it means to have something better. And the list of people in Hebrews 11 is so that we might understand what faith is and its significance, and we might know that for us, their lives are but a springboard because faith in Jesus is better. Consider this. Abel, by faith, made a sacrifice to the Lord that was acceptable to the Lord. You know what you get to do? You get to place your faith in Jesus. You know what he does? He cleanses you of all your sins so that you become an acceptable sacrifice to God. Noah, by faith, got to build this ark to deliver he and his family from this flood of judgment. Amazing story. But you know what you get to do? By putting your faith in Jesus, you enter the ark of Jesus Christ, and you are now saved from God's eternal judgment on your sin. You're saved forever. Yeah, Moses got to enter into the tent of meeting, and he got to speak to God face to face, but you know what Moses had to do? He had to leave the tent of meeting. He had to go deal with a bunch of yahoos. They didn't like him or what he was doing without the presence of God with him. Then he had to, after he get beat up by all the people he's trying to lead, he had to go back into the tent to get rejuvenated from the presence of God. He was limited to experiencing the presence of God to the tent of meeting. Guess what you get to do? Through faith in Jesus Christ, God gives you the Spirit of Christ so that you are personally indwelt by the empowering, directing, life-changing presence of God, and he will never leave you or forsake you. You have the enduring presence of God with you nonstop. Better really means better. How many of you have heard of the name Sam Thompson? Or Billy Evans, Paul Wayner? Anybody ever heard those names? Probably not. You know who those guys are? They're guys in the Baseball Hall of Fame. You just never heard of them. But they, just like those in the Hall of Fame in option A that you've heard about, decided somewhere along the way that somebody's record would not be a goal to attain, but a springboard from which to go on to something better. And though those guys are in option B, you don't know who they are. They understood there was something more significant than fame. The Hall of Faith is not about fame, because significance in life does not come from your personal fame. Significance in life comes simply from trusting Jesus no matter what. You might get option A, but you just might get a whole lot more of option B. It's not your call. But because we live at a time that's better, you have the opportunity to place your faith in Jesus. And there is nothing in all the world better than placing your faith in Jesus Christ? Nothing. And so I just invite you, in response to Hebrews 11, will you decide today to trust Jesus no matter what?